And Thiago, I'm going to let you have the floor. And like we said, if there's any questions or anything, please put those in the chat, and we will and we'll try to answer those as best we can. So Thiago, floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. And today I will talk about rebuilding the cow herd following drought. I divided my presentation in three topics. So first, I'll talk about the situation that we are currently at. And then I will talk about some important aspects on the reproductive management of heifers and first calf heifers, okay? Just before I start, okay, just let me reconfigure this, all right? So, let me see. Okay, so this chart right here illustrates the cattle inventory in the United States in the last 25 years. And according with this graph and with the specialist, the beef cattle inventory in the United States is at the lowest point in 50 years. And the specialist
biting off pieces. It wasn't that hot. I felt it.
The specialists are predicting that we are currently at the verge of the end of the cycle that is starting 2014, when we have higher calf prices, and we are at the verge of the end of this cycle here and the beginning of a new cycle. And just as similar as 2014, the price of the calves, as illustrated here by this blue dotted line, is at the record point. The price is really attractive for calves. And although it's not represented here, the demand is also strong, which signalize a good scenario for the herd expansion. But despite of this favorable scenario, the analysts also predict that the expansion of the herd will take longer than the previous cycle, and the herd will grow slower, and that is because of the high inputs. As you can see here, there was an increase on the prices of the commodities since 2021, and because of that, the producers are still hesitant to grow in and retain heifers. This is not only the only reason, but there is also the drought scenario that is still lingering around. Yes, so the herd should be expanding, and the producer should be considering to retain the heifers soon. But although those that are considering to retain or buying heifers are looking for the best bang for his or her buck, this is not the only point. There is another point as well. When you consider to retain heifer, you must consider that you have to retain those heifers for a longer period. Here in this table is represented the payback period of replacement heifers in a spring calving herd, in the fall calving herd, when the replacement heifers didn't miss any calf, or when a replacement heifer missed 1 or 2 calves. As you can see here, when the heifers miss the calf, the payback period increase from 6 to 8 years and from 6 to 10 years. And actually, there is also a depreciation of the value of the replacement heifers. If you compare with heifers that never miss the calf, there is a depreciation in the value of the heifers of 70% up to the 142% if you compare with those replacement heifers that never miss the calf. So besides, of course, looking for to decrease the input cost to develop the replacement heifers and also buying heifers that are not too high in terms of price, you have also to consider to increase the reproductive performance of the replacement heifers and to keep them longer in the herd. So as my first take-home message here, remember that retaining or buying replacement heifers is a substantial financial commitment with long-term profitability implications, and that you must consider as well the time that you are going to keep the heifers in your herd, as the cost will be diluted as you keep this animals longer in the herd. With that being said, now I want to talk about replacement heifers and some aspects related to reproductive management of the replacement heifers. And the first point that comes to everybody's minds is the proportion of the mature body weight of the heifers. And of course that heavier heifers will present better reproductive performance. As you can see here, the pregnancy rate and the calving rate in the first 21 days were greater for those heifers with 65% of the mature body weight, and they also reconceive at a greater proportion when as a first calf heifers when compared with those replacement heifers developed to the 55% of the mature body weight. I'm not advocating that you should develop your heifers to the 65% of mature body weight, and that will depend on the input cost. And if you actually have a market for your open heifers, then you might consider to have a little smaller proportion of pregnancy and consider to develop your heifers to the 55% of the mature body weight. But the 2 points here that I want to highlight here is the pubertal rate and the 21-day calving rate. Why I'm highlighting these 2 points? So first of all is the 21-day calving rate. So this graph here is illustrating the proportion of heifers remaining in the herd when the heifers, according to the moment that the replacement heifers calve. As you can see here, illustrated by this square solid line, the replacement heifers that calved in the first 21 days of the calving season remain longer in the herd when compared with the other heifers that calved later on. So that's why it's important to have your heifers, your replacement heifers, conceiving earlier during the breeding season and as maximum as possible during the first 21 days of the breeding season. And of course, the reproductive performance of heifers will be tightly related with the pubertal rate of heifers that is measured according to the reproductive tract score of the heifers. So essentially, the reproductive tract score is a tool that allows to measure the reproductive mature of heifers. And this tool is based on the assessment of the size of the uterine horn and tone of the uterine horn and the size of the largest ovarian follicle and the presence of the corpus luteum. According to the uterine tone and the diameter of the uterine horn and presence of these structures on the ovaries, the heifers are classified in 5 categories. The heifers classified with RTS between 1 to 3 are reproductively immature heifers. That means they are not ready to be bred, or heifers that are classified between RTS 4 and 5, which are heifers that are reproductively mature and they are ready to go. They are ready to breed. And there is a proportion of reproductively immature heifers here in the state of Missouri, according with this data set that I put together. About 31% of the heifers evaluated here in Missouri were reproductively immature. That is quite a big number. Of course, that there is a variation, but this is on average. And there is a positive relationship between RTS and pregnancy per AI. So as you can see here, especially those heifers with the RTS 1 and 2 presented a smaller pregnancy per AI when compared with those heifers with RTS between 3 and 5. And another important point that I want to highlight here, that is not only that immature heifers conceive at the lower proportion when to estrus synchronization, but they also take longer to conceive during the breeding season. So in this graph here, is illustrated the dynamic of attainment of pregnancy according to the RTS of heifers. So just let me set up this graph, because there will be another graph or two that are similar. So on the y-axis, you will see the probability or the proportion of no pregnant cows or heifers, and on the x-axis is represented the days in breeding. So as you can see here, for heifers classified as RTS 1 to 2, besides they present a smaller proportion of pregnancy when compared with RTS 4 and 5 at this specific time point of the breeding period, that is about the day 10. They take longer to become pregnant along the breeding period. And remember that we want to make sure that the heifers conceive as soon as possible during the breeding period. And just to solidify this concept, I like this table that I put together here, because the pregnancy rate is the product of the service rate, that is the proportion of animals mated out of the total, and the conception rate, that is the proportion of pregnant animals all out of those mated. And you have to agree with me that the only animals that are able to be mated are those that are cycling or those that are reproductively mature. And in this table, I set up 3 cycles. And in this specific example, I consider a proportion of 50% of animals cycling, and I consider that all animals were mated. So in this example, you can see that considering that at the second cycle, 100% of animals are cycling, 72% were pregnant during the first 2 cycles, and in this hypothetical scenario, 88% of the animals were pregnant. But look how catastrophic is when the proportion of animals that are able to become pregnant or that is showing estrus is only 6%. So in this case, most of the females become pregnant at the end of the last 2 cycles in this specific hypothetical scenario. And the proportion, the final pregnancy is also smaller when compared with animals that were mostly cycling at the beginning of a breeding period. So I just want to highlight again that it's important to have reproductively mature heifers at the beginning of the breeding period. And the Show Me Select is a program with best management practice that can help you to better develop your heifers. I know that this table is quite overwhelming, but I just want to highlight 2 points here. The first is the pre-breeding evaluation, where the heifers, where the reproductive tract score of the heifers are evaluated, and the pregnancy exam that is conducted 90 days after the start of the breeding, which means that you have an opportunity to have your heifers with the pregnancy stage, and you can just keep those heifers that conceive in the first days of the breeding season. But here, going back to the reproductive tract score, that you have access 30 to 60 days prior breeding. It's important when you have this kind of assessment, and let's say that you find out that there is a great proportion of heifers that are not cycling. First of all, you can flush and nutritionally your heifers, so they can be hopefully cycling at the beginning of the breeding season. Or you can also use estrus synchronization program. One important feature of estrus synchronization is the capability of the seeder that contains progesterone to induce cyclicity of reproductively immature heifers. So in this graph here, as you can see, those prepubertal heifers that were treated with seeder came in estrus faster when compared with the control group that did not receive anything, or with the group that just received PGF that is lutalized. So keep in mind that estrus synchronization program through the insertion of the seeder has this capability of induce cyclicity in heifers. But this will happen just in those heifers that are really close to attain reproductive maturity. That will not happen in the heifers that are too far back as RTS1 heifers, for example. And if you want to know more about the estrus synchronization program, I highly recommend to visit the Beef Reproduction Task Force, where you have a chart with all estrus synchronization programs available. But here I want to highlight the long-term estrus synchronization program, that are those programs characterized by treatment with cereals for 14 days, or MGA supplementation for 14 days. In this case, the heifers are stimulated with a source of progestin, and then the heifers have 19 days to attain puberty before you actually inject the PG, that is the lutalize, and that marks the beginning of the breeding period. So just by having your heifers evaluated by the RPS, and if you find out that most of your heifers are reproductively immature, you can supplement them and to increase the gain and maximize the number of heifers mature at the beginning of the breeding season. Or you can use the estrus synchronization program as well to stimulate cyclicity. And as you can see here in this table, we have 3 estrus synchronization program, and the pregnancy period for pre or peripubertal heifer that are essentially reproductively immature heifers, or pubertal heifers that are reproductively mature heifers. And as you can see here, always the prepubertal heifers present a smaller pregnancy period when compared with the pubertal heifers. But when you actually compare the 3 protocols, you can see here that the long-term protocol present a greater pregnancy period when compared with these other 2 protocols, 37, 36, and 35 against 46%. Just highlighting that if you are expecting, or you know that most of your heifers are immature, you should consider to use this long-term protocol. And since we are talking about reproductive biotechnologies, I just want to introduce a new technology that I would like to develop here in Missouri, that is the use of Doppler. So conventionally, to pregnancy check an animal, you can pregnancy check an animal as early as 28 to 30 days using ultrasound and on B mode. But nowadays, there is a new technology where you can pregnancy check an animal as early as 20 to 21 days using the color Doppler mode of the ultrasound. In this case, the pregnancy check is based on the functionality of the corpus luteum, that is the structure that maintains pregnancy. And in this example here, you can clearly see the difference between a pregnant heifer that present a functional corpus luteum and a no pregnant heifers that present a no functional corpus luteum. And by using this technology, when I was in Mississippi, I developed this program here to breed the replacement heifers of the research station that I used to oversee. And they were exclusively bred using artificial insemination. The breeding season lasted 48 days, counting from considering as day 0 the first day of the day of the first insemination. And using Doppler, I was able to breed the heifers just 24 days after the first AI service. If you consider the traditional mode of pregnancy check a animal, in this case, the animal would be pregnancy check 30 days after the first AI service, and the second AI would have happened just 40 days later. And with this technology, I could AI just 24 days after the first service, and the same was true for the third AI. So with this technology, I got quite good pregnancy results at the first AI and the second AI. Here I just put Doppler and B mode because as it is a new technology, we still have a proportion of false positive here that was about 10% when compared with the traditional mode. But at the end, considering these two group of heifers, I got 83% of heifers pregnant and 70 and almost 75% of heifers pregnant. But what I want to highlight here that it is that in the first 24 days of the breeding season, look that I got 73% and 63% of heifers already bred. So this is one technology that I really would like to develop here in Missouri and evaluate the profitability and perhaps include this technology in the Show Me Select program. So as my take-home message for the second part of my presentation, remember that reproductively immature heifers conceive at the lowest and lowest rates during the breeding season. You have always to consider to breed your heifers earlier during the breeding season to maximize the proportion of heifers conceiving earlier during the breeding season. And just remember that synchronization program is a tool that can help to induce cyclicity and maximize the proportion of pregnant heifers at the beginning of the breeding season. And my second and last part of this presentation, I want to talk about first calf heifers because let's say that everybody did a good job on breeding the heifers, but you gotta to keep up with the first calf heifers. That is one of the most challenging category in a cow-calf operation. So just remember that the first calf heifers take longer to resume cyclicity after calving. In this specific graph here, you can see that the proportion of first calf heifers cycling was smaller when compared with older and more mature heifers. But here is 50 against 60%, but this proportion can be as low as 6%. This is real data that I collected in Florida when I was a postdoc. At the beginning of the breeding season, I assessed the proportion of animal cycling, old and mature heifers, the proportion of cyclicity, 70 days on average postpartum was close to 60%, but look at for first calf heifers, just 6% were cycling, which means just 6% of the animals were ready to breed. And it's important to remember that this postpartum is directly related with this proportion of animal cycling at the beginning of the breeding season. That's why you want to have your replacement heifers breeding earlier during the breeding season, because um, when they calve and they are submitted to the second breeding season, if they calve earlier, they will have longer days postpartum, and the probability of the first calf heifers being cycling will be higher. And another important point for proportion of animal cycling is the body condition score, that is positively related with cyclicity. As the body condition score increase, the proportion of animal cycling is also higher. And another point is, remember that first calf heifers is a challenge category, and they are the category that will lose body condition score after calving. As you can see here, it illustrated by this dashed line here. The first calf heifers compare with old and mature heifers lost more condition, and they lost more condition than second calf heifers as well. And you want to avoid this change on body condition score, because it will impair the reproductive performance. This is another interesting study where the authors collected the body condition score at calving of first calf heifers, and they compared with the pregnancy period. So here, the first calf heifers were categorized in high body condition score, moderate body condition score, or low body condition score. Of course, that you have a positive relationship according to the increase of the body condition score. But what was really cool in this data was actually that the authors were able to trace the body condition score change from calving to the beginning of the breeding season. And as you can see here, those heifers that calve but lost, that present good body condition score at calving, but that lost body condition score presented a suboptimal pregnancy period, as you can see here and here. And of course, those that calf that poor body condition score already presented smaller proportion of pregnancy when compared with the other two categories. So here, the point that I want to make is the first calf heifers, they have to calve at the adequate body condition score, that is 5 to 5.5 or 6, but they have to maintain body condition score. They cannot lose BCS. You have to adjust the nutritional demands of this first calf heifer so they can maintain body condition score from calving to the beginning of the breeding season. And similarly, this table is represented the same results. This is the proportion of pregnancy according to the body condition score during 3 periods of the breeding season. And as you can see here, first calf, as you can see here, those first calf heifers that presented greater body condition score conceived earlier when compared with those with poor body condition score, as you can see here, 40 and 60 days. And not only that, but also those animals that were at a high plane of nutrition also conceived at a greater proportion when compared with those animals just at the moderate plane of nutrition. So you got to adjust the nutritional plan of your first calf heifers so they can also present a good reproductive performance when at this during the second breeding season. And similarly to heifers, remember that the cedar also can stimulate cyclicity in cows, as you can see here. Those animals treated with cedar came in estrus faster when compared with those that just received lutalize or that did not receive anything. So actually the estrus synchronization program is also a great tool to stimulate and induce cyclicity in in cows in estrus postpartum. And again, I recommend to visit the Beef Reproduction Task Force and see the protocols available for cows. And the objective of the estrus synchronization program is to make most of the cows conceive earlier during the breeding period. As you can see here, those animals that were submitted to one round of estrus synchronization and time AI followed by natural service conceived earlier. As you can see here on day 10 of the breeding season, more than 55% of the cows were already pregnant, while for those that were just submitted to the natural service, the same proportion just happened at day 55 to 60 of the day of the breeding season. And at the end, more animals were pregnant as well when they were submitted to one round of estrus synchronization and time AI. But remember that estrus synchronization is not the silver bullet. It will just induce cyclicity in those animals that are near or very close to resume cyclicity. As you can see here, for those animals with a poor body condition score, the proportion of pregnancy was still smaller when compared with those animals with greater or adequate body condition score. And I just want to highlight, if you have condition, as you add reproductive biotechnology, you increase reproductive performance of your herd. Here it's represented 4 scenarios. First, cows that was just submitted to the natural service, and as you can see, they take longer and they present a smaller proportion of pregnancy when compared with the other 3 strategies. In this X and the dotted line here slash line, excuse me, you have a better reproductive performance, more cows conceived earlier and at a greater proportion. But look at when the authors submitted the cows to 2 rounds of estrus synchronization at different periods. The animals conceived earlier and at the greater proportion when compared with the other 2 strategies. So if you have opportunity and condition to add reproductive biotechnology, you will see that the reproductive performance of your herd will improve as well. And lastly, I just want to mention the possibility that many times we forget that is the use of early weaning. Early weaning is also a possibility for first calf heifers. As you can see here, the proportion of, of, of pregnancy or conception for those first calf heifers submitted to early weaning was greater when compared with those that were submitted to wean at normal age, and they conceived earlier. And looked at the calf weight was not impaired when the calves were early weaned. And when you should consider the use of early weaning, let's say that you retain your replacement heifers, and then you end up with a low availability of forage because of drought, or your first calf heifers are thin, then you might consider to early wean the calves. And remember, of course, that there will be increased costs with feed because you will need to feed the early weaned calves, but the gains with the pregnancy may pay off the feeding cost. And here in this other report here, the authors compare the normal weaning, the early weaned revenue, and when they early weaned the calves, the weight at 7 months were not different when compared with normal weaned calves. And here is the other scenario when they early wean the calves and just sow the calves. So of course, that in this first year, the revenue was negative for the early wean because of the increased cost with the feed. But at the second year, they didn't have a huge increase on the pregnancy rate, just 2% more. But the revenue was already greater for early weaned first calf heifers. So this is a possibility. Now just imagine that with the early weaned, you could get 80% of pregnancy as opposed to 60%. This itself may pay off in the second year as you adopt early weaning your first calf heifers in adverse scenarios. So as my final take-home message for this second part, just remember that you have to manage after conceiving. You have to manage your first calf heifers to calve with adequate body condition score, and they have to maintain the body condition score during the breeding season in order to have a greater reproductive performance. And also, I want to highlight the importance of estrus synchronization program to maximize reproductive performance of first calf heifers as well. And you can take advantage of early weaning in adverse situations such as drought. With that is all I got it for today, and I would be happy to take any question if you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Thiago. Any questions right now? You can put them in the chat or you can ask them. One I'll just kind of ask this, and I don't know where this would fit at in this talk, but um, I guess one thing, calving or setting heifers up to calve at 2 versus 2.5 years of age. Um, is that something? I guess what I'm getting at is we talked a lot about nutrition and a lot about um, management and reproductive tract score and with the drought and stuff, maybe we are not developing those heifers as fast as because of the nutrition standpoint. Maybe we're not developing those heifers as fast as maybe we would have been in years where we've got better nutrition. Um, is that something maybe we consider calving those heifers a little like if we get to the point where we're doing a pre-breeding exam and our heifers just aren't ready, do we wait longer or do we use new heifers or what's your thoughts on that?
That's a good question. Uh, it depends because if you do the reproductive tract score and most of your heifers are not ready to breed and you consider to hold them for an extra year, you have cost with that, and you have to wait to wait if this cost is worthwhile, or if you can go out to the market and sell these heifers, or you can even, depending of your heifers, for example, are RTS3, you can even, or and they are close to the mature body weight, they are, let's say, at the 50% of the mature body weight, you can challenge them using astro synchronization program and try to make most of all of it, and you can try to make most of them conceive and see if you can get some of the heifers pregnant, because you can try anyway if they are close to conceive. I guess my question, my answer is, um, it's difficult to hold the heifers for open heifers for an extra year. I think this might represent economic burden for the producer, and I would recommend, depending on the situation, to try to breed the heifers if they are close to the mature body weight, and if you see that they can actually respond to a astro synchronization program, or if you can also, or if you can supplement them to increase the body weight gain in 30 to 60 days. Just a practical example, when I was in Florida, reproductive tracting score heifers. I went to a farm, and I tracked score. Of course, was a small producer. I tracked score 13 heifers, and 11 heifers were RTS1, and just one was RTS2. In this situation, um, I couldn't recommend to breed the heifers. So what I told him was, you can sell your heifers, or you can keep them for an extra year breed. And he decided to sell the heifers because it was not worthwhile to wait another year. And they were not in adequate body conditions for either close to the mature body weight necessary. I guess the point is, you have to balance out these factors, and maybe you can challenge your heifers even though uh, uh, they are with a low RTS. If they are RTS3, for example, and if they are close to the mature body weight.
Another question, and if anybody else has questions, please put those in the chat or let me know. You never talked a lot about length of calving season, things like that. Do you have any thoughts on that? Or, I mean, yeah, just any thoughts on length of calving season as it might relate to management strategies in the cow herd?
Yes. I think for the length of the breeding season, of course, if you can keep your breeding season as short as possible, as 60 days would be better. But if you can prolong your breeding season for 90 and 120 days, for example, and then you can check your animals and just keep those that are bred during the first day of the breeding season, and then you can get rid of the other ones that did not fit to your system, and you can sell pregnant cows or pregnant heifers that are conceiving later on. If you have the strategy of pregnancy checking your animals and stage the pregnancy, you can keep the animals that are conceiving earlier and then sell the other ones if you want to stretch your breeding season and have most of your animals pregnant, and then you can sell the other ones that did not fit your program. But if you don't want to do that, try to keep your breeding season to a 60-day breeding season, which give the animals to recycle. I just think that is hard to keep a 60-day breeding season and get most of the animals bred without using any reproductive biotechnology, just natural service. I just think that is particularly hard to do that. I know producers that do that, but it's hard to keep a short breeding season without using any kind of biotechnology. So you can do that, not using reproductive biotechnology, but at least pregnancy check your animals. Then you can keep a longer breeding season and just keep the animals that fit your system and those that will calve during the first 60 days of the breeding season, and sell the other ones to someone that will fit the system. What do you think?
I guess one final question, and so we talked a lot about reproductive technologies tonight, and track scoring, pre-breeding exams, things like that. As we go, let's just say next 6 months, something like that, or I mean even in the next year, but in the next, as cattle producers rebuild their cattle herd, what is like the top 1 or 2, maybe 3 things that is going to give them the most benefit in their cattle operation as they utilize these technologies, or what we kind of I guess as they utilize reproduction and as they do things to influence reproduction in the cattle herd, what are like the top 1, 2, 3 things that is going to give them the most benefit in, say, the next 6 months to a year as they're working on rebuilding the herd following drought?
When we are talking about short term, 6 months to a year, I would say nutrition and getting good replacement heifers. And the third point would be to use any kind of of ester synchronization program. Even if you don't want to AI, at least use ester synchronization, and instead of AI, you can use bulls. So the 3 points considering a short term would be getting good replacement heifers, work on your nutritional program, and use ester synchronization. And long term, of course, would be genetic. But for that, you would need to work on EPDs and getting um, um, better bulls, or even seeking for good genetics through artificial insemination. But that would be a long term. Of course, you will not see an improvement on your herd using genetics in 6 months. That will be a long term thing, but it's another very important point to consider in a cow-calf operation, that is genetic.
So you brought something up, and this will be the last question, because I think we're pretty running out of time here. But you brought something up with ester synchronization. This is an interesting topic, is using natural service bulls, and so a couple of thoughts on that. Maybe how do we manage those? How do we manage those cattle differently? Because I know with ester synchronization, artificial insemination, we're pretty. I mean, we have a set bull to cow ratio and things like that. That's pretty much determined. But a lot of times when you use natural service, or when you do ester synchronization, obviously your goal is to get a lot of females coming into heat, coming into estrus, conceiving early in the breeding season. That's pretty easy to do when you're putting a straw on a cow. Now, on the other hand, if we're doing that ester synchronization with natural service bulls, and we're using natural service bulls, obviously those bulls are doing the job there. So do we look at any, and I've read some articles on this, and kind of the reason why I'm bringing this up is I'm not for sure. But do we manage those bulls any differently? Do we use more bulls? Do we use less bulls? What's kind of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Although ester synchronization is around for a long time, the ester synchronization was developed to use with artificial insemination. So this no AI ester synchronization program it's a recent strategy. And what, according with the studies that I've read, what they are doing is to put 1 bull to 10 cows during the first week after the end of the ester synchronization program. When you pull out the seeder and give the shot of Butalize, you are going to keep the ratio of 1 bull to 10 cows during the first week, and then you decrease the ratio. You increase the ratio to 1 to 25 or 1 to 30. But for that, of course, it's a lot of bull power, and the producer might not have all that bull. You might have to consider to consign the bulls, or even stagger your cow, so you can use the bulls in a group of cows, and then using another group. You need to stagger your cows for those heavy service days. So, but as I mentioned, they are still researching about it and trying to come up with the ideal proportion of bulls in these days, that a great proportion of animals are coming with it. But according with the studies that I've read, again, safely they recommend 1 to 10, 1 bull to 10 cows during the first week, and then you increase the ratio to 1 to 30 or 1 to 25, as you normally use in your herd.
Okay. Any other, I don't see any other questions. Obviously Thiago's contact information is there, and I will we'll send that along with you'll get the video with his contact information in it. And so want to thank everybody. One thing I do want to mention, if you're in Southwest Missouri, and we talked a little bit about within Thiago's talk tonight, the Show Me Select Heifer program. If you're in Southwest Missouri and you have any interest in being in the Show Me Select Heifer program, in the future, we're going to have a meeting down there at the Southwest Research Extension and Education Center in Mount Vernon on March 18th. Thiago will actually be there that night talking about that program specifically and some things he's doing with that program. And we'll have Dr. Jamie Corder. She's our new geneticist with the University of Missouri and Extension. And she'll be there via Zoom, kind of talking about some of the stuff she does with that program. And so if that's of any interest to you to be in that program in the future, which that's basically, it's got a 25 plus year history. It's kind of the gold standard for reproductive or heifer development in the state of Missouri. Oh, and it's got a 25 plus year history in that. Developing heifers, as well as we have a marketing program for the heifers that are developed through that program. If that's of any interest, like I said, if that program's of any interest to you and you want to know more about it and you're in Southwest Missouri, we're going to have a meeting at the Southwest or the MU Southwest Research Extension Education Center near Mount Vernon on March 18th. That's a Monday night at 7 p.m. And so if you have any interest in being involved in that, get in touch with me, contact me, let me know that you're planning on attending. Or if you have any questions about that, get in touch with me and I'll be more than happy to answer them. So with that, I don't see any more questions. There was one person in the chat that said, thanks, appreciate the expertise. And so with that, thank you again, Thiago, for your talk tonight. And like I said, I'll be sending out an evaluation here in the future, so you can evaluate the program. Let us know some of the things you'd like to see in the future. So, or how we did. So, thank you again, and need anything, just let us know.
Thank you.